We would be honored if you would join us.
I got a bad feeling about this.
You are the chosen one!
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It's a trap!
I don't like Sam. It's coarse, rough, and irritating.
I am your father.
Hey now, welcome to episode 118 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is a sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. In addition to the BOF podcast, you can find other shows such as Ryan Haas.
Oh, hey, we have a brand new show that just got added to the Batman Podcast Network. It is called Above and Batman Beyond. That's pretty clever. It's a podcast devoted entirely to Batman Beyond. You can hear interviews with people who have worked on the series, discussions, reviews, and reactions to all aspects of the Batman Beyond universe, from the animated series to movies to the comics, even toys and games. There is plenty to dig into in Neo Gotham. That's a cool idea for a podcast, and you can find them at batmanbeyondpodcast.com, and they are also on Twitter at Batman Beyond Pod.
Awesome. And that was Ryan Haas, everybody. I'm your host today, Rick Shew. And obviously Ryan Haas is here with us. Who's the other co-host? Justin, what's your last name again? I don't even know you anymore.
You can't pronounce it.
I haven't talked to you in months.
If you say it backwards, it'll send me home.
Yes.
I think Chris got it.
Kowalski.
Surely Rick understands that.
Kowalski. So here's the thing, Justin. We haven't done a podcast together, and the last one we did was when you and I were arguing about my Batman Without Gods op-ed.
Yeah.
And we didn't draw enough blood for people were like really pissed off about that podcast. They were like, man, I really thought you guys were going to go after each other. I was like, really?
It was because I don't know. I wasn't not that passionate. I wasn't very passionate. More passionate on Twitter than like once you get talking, you're like, I'm just talking with my buddy now about. It wasn't like I was, I don't know, one of those political shows on Sunday mornings where people are yelling. You know, I guess maybe that's more interesting to listen to, but in the end, I just wanted to chat about how you were wrong. That's all. I didn't want to.
Yeah, man. People want that. They want that visceral. They want that visceral rock and roll radio. I'm like, man, if you think that our shtick on social media is authentic or not authentic, that's not the right word, but
is real.
That's just us guys being boys, right?
Yeah,
that's all it is. All right, so we're getting off track here. We have a very special guest who is nothing short of Batman on Film royalty. He's also a movies.com contributor. His name is Chris Clow. Mr. Clow. What's up, Chris?
I don't know how I could live up to an intro like that, but I'm pretty pumped now, so thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate the invite.
Absolutely, man. You're part of this with us. You're part of BOF, so we're thrilled to have you on, man.
Hey, always happy to be part of the family.
I'm trying to think the last time. What was the last show you and I did together? Was it the
Batman Returns commentary? I believe.
Oh yeah, I just sat back and got really drunk and was texting Peter like new pictures, and
that was the best
because I hate that movie.
Oh, it was so good.
You know, but to be honest, I didn't hear nearly as much venom from you on it as I expected to. So for whatever it's worth. And we were hoping that Justin would be able to join us for that one, but we felt him. We felt your heart with Batman.
He was so upset he recorded his own commentary like 2 weeks later.
I know. I was
on his other show.
Yeah, I was really bummed. It was one of those things where it was like, there's no going back. I think we should just put one out every Christmas. It should be the annual Batman on Film.
It would be different every time.
Podcast commentary.
Just
anyways,
bad returns. People are talking about, right now there's the rumors, and it's nothing more than a rumor right now, but supposedly, possibly Matt Reeves is looking to have the Penguin in his film. Well, we'll see. whatever. But
Okay.
you know, people were asking me how I felt about that. I said, absolutely. Anything that can wash away that abomination that was the Danny DeVito interpretation.
No.
That black goo cannot be washed away, sir.
Anyway, and as always, I'm going to pick the show back up here. And as always, Batman on Film is the authoritative, the definitive. And Justin, give me a Southern California. Do it.
Dude.
The dude gum original.
That's not.
No,
not
I was just
bro.
That sounded almost like Russell Crowe's South Park.
Batman on Film is the authoritative, the definitive, and the dadgum
original.
The dadgum original. All right, guys.
It only works when Bill says it, man. It really doesn't work.
Well, Bill doesn't do podcasts anymore, guys. So. It is what it is. He just likes everybody to see his pretty face on camera.
You got to use that hair product.
Wait a second, I didn't hear this. Wait, so not only did Bill have the chance to retire from his job, but he's also retiring from podcasting?
Well, he's not retired from podcasting. He's just turned the shows over to us, and he's doing concentrating more on the vlogs. And I think he thinks that we're better hosts than he is on these things. And quite frankly, he's right. He sucks. I'm kidding. No, actually, you know what? I would rather watch like Clay Dry than listen to him. No, but he's people miss him and we miss him, and we haven't done just a show with us in a long while. But you know, he and I do these vlogs, and that's cool. But you know,
I don't know when the last time Bill was on a podcast, and I wish he would come on.
Yeah, it wasn't this year.
It was episode 105, January 28th for the Scooby-Doo Batman Brave and Bold.
And I
that was his swan song.
So
Zoinks.
It is what it is. Hey,
I was going to be on that show too, and then I had like food poisoning, and I couldn't do it, and I was super bummed.
Hey, you guys want to hear something kind of funny on a side note? I told Ryan off mic earlier. I was like, hey man, let's maybe skip all the chit chat stuff we do at the beginning. Let's just get to the meat and potatoes of this show. He's like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. We're 10 minutes in with it. No one even knows what we're talking about yet. So on that note, I'm going to thank Bill for, we're BOF 20, and Saturday, June 2nd is the official day. So this show is airing, or I'm sorry, not airing, we are recording at 10:20 p.m. Central Standard Time on May 31st, and on June 2nd on Saturday.
BOF After Dark.
It's BOF After Dark, and on Saturday BOF turns 20 years old. And, it's a really cool thing, man. And Justin made some awesome new attire. So there's a new BOF 20 shirts. We have a lot of really cool, exciting things. We have a video that Justin will be producing and editing. I'm going down to Houston. I live in Dallas. I'm going down to Houston to interview Bill on camera in his office for this documentary. And a lot of people that love him and love the site have been doing some cool things that we will just let the things that I just aforementioned things speak for themselves, so I don't ruin anything for Bill. But it's gonna be a cool thing, man. Really cool. 20 years, guys. So think about that. When did you guys? I started following BOF and probably, it was kind of off and on, but religiously through the whole Nolan trilogy, starting with Begins. So what about you guys?
Wow. And I was finding it early because it was when they were talking about Batman Triumphant. That's where I would start hitting Batman on Film up. I don't think it was his Jet D page. I think it was Batman on Films. It had to be 99, man. Whenever all that news started coming out about Batman Triumphant and Howard Stern Scarecrow and Jeff Goldblum Scarecrow and all that stuff, that's when I started jumping on. So
yeah, that's great. What about you?
For me, I was in sixth grade. That was what I did when I came home from school. I would hop on the computer and go to Jet D60's Batman 5 page, So I was like little, 10, 11-year-old or whatever. And it was
not have been on the internet.
It was still Jet D60's Batman 5 page with the Scarecrow Joker hallucination deal. So I vividly remember that.
That's so cool, man. Chris, what about you, bud?
I think it was around the year 2000. I know that I was definitely hardcore into voraciously consuming every single update that he would put up, certainly by 2001 and 2. I mean, I still remember when he was he really happily, well, it seemed like it was happy. Maybe it wasn't as happy as it seemed. Announced Wolfgang Petersen's Batman versus Superman. But just thinking about the fact that it's the 20th anniversary, what would be awesome is if somehow on the site he could reconstruct Jet D60's Batman 5 page as like an archive to have on there.
I looked for it. There's a thing.
It's like gone. It's not there.
Time machine or something like that. It'll pull certain stuff. Yeah, the way back. And I couldn't find anything on there.
Man,
there's very few things I can find. Yeah.
Well, so cool. In any event, I mean, it's just hard to think that it's been 20 years too, because I've been associated with BOF just myself now for 12. And that seems like yesterday, So
didn't we start on BOF around the same time, Chris? Like 2006, six-ish?
Yeah, thereabouts. I mean, oh man, those early comic book reviews I wrote, they were so bad. But hey, God love him. He let me keep rolling, and now here we are today. So it's been nothing but a blast. And of course, the true honor of all of that is meeting you, fine gentlemen, and everyone else that I've met through.
Hey, man, here. I've made like lifetime friends because of this site, and there's no really good way to segue out of this because I could just go down memory lane about BOF and Bill and all you guys all day long. But this will be a good time to go ahead and talk about what we are discussing today. But I'll say this that'll tie into what we're saying now is that I also appreciate the fact that 20 years later, here we are. And Bill is thinking outside the box and realizing that Batman on film is a brand, but it's not handcuffs. And we're just speaking more freely, like it's Batman centric. It always will be. And Batman news will always take like top priority over anything else. With that said, here we are about to do yet another Star Wars satellite episode. And I just think stuff like this has just made Batman on film, in my view, much more fun and more it's just neat. We are discussing not just things like Star Wars, but we did our Rocky show. We're talking about doing Back to the Future show. We're certainly discussing things that are DC related that are non-Batman. We're certainly getting into things that are under the Marvel umbrella. And I love that. And it's basically, to me, this is sort of just becoming this pop culture home base for a bunch of guys like us that just eat this stuff up, that we can come and just geek out and have a good time. And I think that's splendid.
Hear.
Yeah. All right.
Yes. All in favor.
All in favor, say hear. All right. So Star Wars. So, all right, guys. So, gosh, I ask this almost every time we do a Star Wars show. We've now done, Ryan, help me out here. What, like 15?
Gosh, I can't even. It's not 15. It's like 6 or 8, something like that.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, and I usually do the other way where I don't, I say 4 and there's 20, but if there's 8, yeah, we've talked about it. Yeah, but we've done shows on like trailers and things like that too. I just feel like that maybe there's a few more, but anyway, there's been several. And today we're going to actually talk about the 4th Disney post George Lucas film, which is Solo, a Star Wars story, which is kind of a little bit of a tongue twister. Solo, a Star Wars story. Chris, you're the official guest, so I'm gonna throw this at you first. How many times have you seen Solo?
Once.
Okay. What did you think of it?
I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I want to see it again. So I think that that says a fair amount right there, especially considering that my anticipation for it was virtually non-existent before I walked into the theater. So it was really, really pleasantly surprising. I'm a huge Chewbacca fan. So really he was the guy I was looking forward to seeing the most, was Chewie and seeing the quote unquote secret origin of that brotherhood, that bond that those two characters have. But I mean, there was a lot to love in this movie. It certainly wasn't, it probably wasn't as emotionally taxing as something like The Last Jedi, far from it. But just as far as a solid story that was pleasantly surprising and showed a reverence for the characters that I think that's the thing that worries people before these things, because a lot of people were bad-mouthing this ahead of time, probably because they were concerned that the movie would not treat the icons that we know so well, very well. And I thought it did. So if that's what your concern is, I don't think that that's a particularly well-founded one. The movie treats Han Solo really well. It treats Lando well. It treats Chewie well. And it surprised me legitimately in quite a few places that I wasn't expecting, which I'm sure we'll get into. So I was very happy with it.
Well, and let's explore that a little bit with you personally. So you're giving examples of certain people that, you know, they had apprehensions going into it, but it sounds to me obviously like you did as well, because you've now said 2 or 3 times that, yeah, you had low expectations. Why is that? Why were your expectations low? Was it some kind of negative reaction to this franchise thus far under Disney, or was it just the fact that you just didn't want to see somebody else play Han? All the above. What was up with that?
It was probably kind of a mixture of things. I mean, I certainly haven't been someone who's badmouthed the so-called Disney administration of Star Wars. I've been generally happy with all of the movies to varying degrees. I mean, the one I enjoyed the most was The Last Jedi. So it was just so completely unexpected in so many ways, and I found that refreshing. But when it comes to a movie like this, I probably shouldn't have set my expectations so low, because oh my God, did I really do that? I did. But it's actually good that I'm having this conversation with you guys, because as we all know, all of us in this conversation, we primarily devote a significant portion of our fandom to roles in movies and television that are not under a single steward for very long. You know, I mean, obviously someone like James Bond is very prototypical, because James Bond gets refreshed every few movies and it's a different actor taking them on. Same with Batman, obviously. I mean, over the course of the character's existence, we've had several different actors embody him to varying levels of success. But really, I think the one that the situation of roles changing hands, particularly in the case of Solo, because Harrison Ford's personality hangs over it so heavily, the situation that I think is most applicable to this is the changing of the guard, so to speak, with the 2009 Star Trek cast. Because I actually found quite a few similarities walking out of Solo to something like Chris Pine taking up the part of Captain Kirk. Before 2009, it was really difficult to imagine anyone but William Shatner being Captain James T. Kirk, anyone but Leonard Nimoy being Spock. And one of the absolute best things about the 2009 Star Trek movie, at least in my estimation, was the casting, which is something that I needed far more of a buy-in for than even something like Solo. But now that doesn't require any buy-in. To me, Chris Pine is Captain Kirk. Zachary Quinto is Spock. Carl Urban is Dr. McCoy. And Alden Ehrenreich's performance as Han Solo, I see a similar potential in him embodying this part, because it was a little different enough, but the writing came with a familiarity to the guy that I know pretty well, but it extrapolated backwards in an interesting way. So, I was pleasantly surprised by him in particular, and as an anchor for the movie, I thought that he was generally successful. So I think that's kind of where my concerns were sort of laid to rest a little bit.
Cool. So basically he won, Alden Ehrenreich won you over, right? I mean, it's fair to say.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was fine. It's certainly not a career defining performance like Harrison Ford's turn as Han Solo was, but this movie didn't require that. He stepped into it, and I thought he did an admirable job.
I did as well. Justin, what do you think?
I was actually really excited for Solo, more so than Last Jedi. I kind of was like, this just looks fun. That I remember that second. I think maybe it was the first trailer. I got pretty pumped. You know, knowing that Ron Howard was coming on to kind of course correct and steer the ship was promising to me. I'm kind of the mind that, I'm just down to see a Star Wars story. Like, no matter who it is. I kind of felt like I'm going for the underdog a little bit, because there was a lot of people dumping on it, and especially like, Alden Ehrenreich. And I was like, he's not Harrison Ford, so just get that out of your system. Like, there's a lot of people that just kind of, only Harrison Ford is Han Solo, but that we've been proved wrong before with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Other people have portrayed him, and we've all lived and we've made it, and we revere both actors. So there's room to have someone step up to the plate. I mean, we're on a Batman podcast where like 9 people have portrayed Batman. We're all good.
Right.
We can rate them later. Rick will make a list, and we will talk about it later.
Rick, the perpetual list maker.
The list
forever and ever.
Rick,
I'll make
the
a
list. So I was getting pumped. I mean, you get Donald Glover, you get like Woody Harrelson, Thandie Newton, like Paul Bettany, all these people that are a part of it. It's got such a good pedigree already going for it. And so I was pumped to go see it. My experience after the movie, I wasn't blown away by the movie. Are we getting into like all of our thoughts?
Just let it rip, man.
I think. I think, okay, I'll give you kind of what I've kind of been saying is I think the cast was fantastic. I don't think there was any weak spots from my point of view. There was nobody I couldn't believe or anything like that. I thought everything looked fantastic. I mean, this looked like a Star Wars film. It felt like a Star Wars film. The Last Jedi, I had a lot of problems with that movie with tone. Canto Bite was like an eyesore to me. It just felt like it was like barfed up from the prequels, and it felt fake and awful and awkward. And I hated that movie. That scene in the movie, I hated that part. So when Han Solo is with Beckett and they're up at that party that Dryden is hosting, that to me was the perfect reflection of a high society party in Star Wars. It felt like it had roots. It felt like it belonged. I didn't question it. As soon as I was there, I was like, okay, this feels like Star Wars. This is high society, like Star Wars party. You won me. You got me. And so I think
the lady dancing and her
man,
absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And yes,
it was great. And it completely felt true to the world. And so I didn't have any problems with stuff like that. And then the score I thought was great.
And let's talk about that for a second, because it was John Powell that did the score, but there was some of the original stuff from all the original films, obviously that is.
Yeah, they definitely dipped in and gave you those Star Wars feels. But yeah, just to kind of close out my thought, when it was all said and done, I just don't think the story made me like, man, I'm glad they told that story. There's a lot of parts of the movie where, maybe we'll get into that later. I don't know where you want to go right now, Rick, but
I want to go where you want to go, man. There's no rules.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, Chris is saying, like, the whole meeting of Chewbacca and Han Solo. I like that part. That was one of the stronger parts of the movie, because you're like, yeah, I'm interested. I want to know how they met. There was some stuff in there that I thought was clunky, like the whole him speaking Wookiee. That was kind of weird, but maybe that was something that they didn't have an opportunity to refilm or reshoot. It just felt kind of like kind of hokey. It felt like a joke. And so I didn't particularly care for that part. It kind of made me eye roll. The most of the things I didn't like in the movie were these hints at, like, oh, he's gonna do this, like wink wink, like, they're it's like someone popped up with a sign that says, remember that happens in the original trilogy. Like, it just kind of felt like this, always they're gonna like point, see, he's gonna do that. And the biggest problem I had with the whole movie was Han Solo did not seem as like self-absorbed and like he was too much of a hero already. I'm like, he becomes a hero in episode 4. I wished he was more of about himself. I wish he would have cheated at the end, when he's playing that game again with Donald Glover, with Lando. I wish he cheated. I wish we saw some
because in Empire he says I won that fair and square, and I mean that's an important line in that film. Why did he need to cheat?
Didn't he mess up Lando's card thing?
Well, he kept Lando from cheating. So
that's,
there's just character moments where I wish that he becomes the hero in 4. I don't want him to be a hero yet. I wish that he wasn't, even his relationship with Kira. you know, it's great to have like the heartbreak and stuff. And then, I don't know. I just wish there was some of that classic Han Solo going on, but it just felt like he's already a hero.
I have a thought on that.
Yeah, go for it. Because those are part of my problems with it. It's like, why are we pushing him to be this Disney prince already?
Well, and I saw on your Facebook, and I'll just say this real quick, Chris. I'm sorry, I'll give you the floor. But I saw that you were talking to somebody, and it was like, oh, it takes away the arc of what he does in Episode 4. It takes away the arc of him being gruff and standoffish and dismissive and whatnot, and then at the very end he flies in and saves his friends and saves the day. Is that fair to say? Justin, is that fair to say? Is it one of those things where?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to you. Is it fair to say that you think it takes away from that arc at the end of Episode 4?
I don't think it doesn't take away from the arc. I just feel that. Are we trying to paint him as a hero now, or are we trying to paint him as learning this unselfish lesson now? And then I don't know.
Well, let's do this.
To me,
you're trying to do both. You're trying to have both.
It felt to me like they left it open for more room for him to get to that point. You know, that he is in Episode 4. Like, it's fine that he's not the same character to me at the end.
I wanted to. Excuse me. I wanted to not like him, but in that kind of way, you're like, oh, I like this kind of like scruffy, this kind of. I wanted him to feel more like Han Solo, and he just kind of felt like
scruffy looking.
He was scruffy look. I wanted him to be a little more of a little more rough around the edges, and that's all. And I wish he would have called, and he kind of did. He kind of called like. Beckett's bluff at the end, and I like that. I was like, okay, he was ready, but I don't know, man. I can't put my finger on it. Like when I just walked out, I was like, man, that just felt like a little too like he's a hero.
All right,
he's ready to go.
And I want to get Chris's thoughts on this, but Ryan, we haven't really heard you talk yet, so let's bring you in on this. And I hate to just put this in your lap, because I know you just want to talk about the movie, but if you don't mind, do you mind just kind of building on this for a moment? What are your thoughts? Does Justin have a point here? Was Han portrayed too soft, too Disney prince, and just didn't feel like Han? What do you think?
I mean, I think it's just a concession of the story you have to kind of go with. For me, I was totally fine with seeing where the story would go. And I didn't expect that this would be like a Rogue One situation where I could stop Solo and start A New Hope and it would all make sense. You know, I feel like there's still time between the end of Solo and the beginning of Episode 4, and I didn't feel like Han's arc had to wrap up, or he had to be, quote, Han Solo by the end of this movie. I feel like, you know, he's a person. People change. We saw that with Luke Skywalker. You know, from Return of the Jedi to The Last Jedi. His personality is a little different. Yeah. You know, So Han Solo, you know, he's been through a lot of things, and a lot of those things he hasn't been through yet in this movie. And I think it's good that there's room left open between that and where we see him in A New Hope. So so it felt enough like Han Solo to me, and I wasn't upset that it wasn't like Harrison Ford from that episode.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I don't have an issue with his performance. It's just what he was given. I think that he's definitely. It wasn't the performance.
I mean, just the story too. I mean, story wise too. I was like, okay. I mean, I went with it. I just went with it.
See, to me, it's like this. What I see is that, because I absolutely love this movie. Okay, I'll just say that up front too. Here is that what I really liked is that now when I watch A New Hope, I'm like, ooh, man, he's hardened by some of this. Right. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a sequel, because unfortunately this thing is underperforming at the box office. And we will touch on that a little bit, but I didn't really want to put much focus on it because I'm going to talk about the movie.
I don't even want to talk about that.
But it's relevant to the conversation here, though. So that's why I'm bringing it up. So unfortunately, I don't know if we'll get a sequel. And I think maybe a sequel was also intended in terms of showing a little bit more of that slow burn, right? But you know what? I don't think we need it. Like, if we get it, great, but I don't think we need it to connect those dots, because here's what I look at. When the movie ends, they are on their way to meet Jabba. That's clear, right? And that's going to those events are going to unfold. He's also going to know that Kira is working for she's in on all this, and she's being manipulated obviously by Darth Maul, which is freaking awesome. And inevitably he's going to find out about all that as well. So when you see him in A New Hope, you just know that he's just gone through all this crap, and now he's just bitter. And then when you see him at the end of A New Hope, you're like, there's Han. There's the guy that I saw in, Solo: A Star Wars Story. And I take everything and I juxtapose all this stuff, right? Like, here's a good example. At the beginning of the film, and one of my favorite things about this movie is I love how you get a little bit of this in Rogue One, but even more so here is that I love that you're kind of seeing how the Empire just kind of functions, right? You even see like recruitment videos. You know what I'm saying? And like,
they play their own theme song.
Yeah, right. That's awesome, right? But remember when he gets separated by her and he's crying and screaming, and his whole thing is to go find her again and whatnot. And then fast forward to Empire Strikes Back, and he has the same feelings for Leia, but he's not outward about it. I mean, my God, she tells him she loves him as he's about to be put in carbonite, and what does he say? I know. That's all he can say. He's just hard. He's hardened, and I find that to be actually a tie-in versus something that's out of character. I feel like it's a part of the character. So, Chris, you were going to comment on this earlier, man. What do you think about this specifically in terms of?
Well, see, the way that I look at it in kind of an opposite perspective from the way that Justin looks at it, in the sense that because this is a story that takes place, what is it, like between 6 and 7 years, primarily 6 or 7 years before A New Hope does.
You know what? Is that ever really clear?
I heard it was 8. But
I mean, look, there's supposedly 19 years between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So I guess it's safe to say it's probably just,
or maybe it was 8 years after Episode 3. Maybe that.
Well, it was 8 years because I feel like Han Solo retired being Han Solo, and then 8 years he came back after he fixed his leg.
Boo!
All right, Chris, continue.
I think that in terms,
edit that.
But what this movie does is it sort of recharacterizes the journey that Han goes on, because yes, I do. It's hard to disagree with Justin when he says when we meet Han in A New Hope, he develops these tendencies that make him an effective leader in the Rebel Alliance. But to me, the most pivotal moment in Solo was when he's talking with Kira at the party, and she says, "I might be the only person in the galaxy who knows who you really are." And Han just goes, "Yeah, what's that?" And she tells him, "You're the good guy." And what that tells me, if that is a true statement and she fully understands who Han is deep down, then what we see at the beginning of A New Hope, where he is kind of underhanded and shoots Greedo first, depending on your perspective on that, I guess. And he is a more quote unquote legitimate outlaw. That's the deviation, and the heroic Han is the norm. It's his association with Leia and with Luke, and the realization of what he needs to do that sort of snaps him back into doing,
brought him out
exactly
of that.
Because really,
yeah,
as much as we did fall in love with the scoundrel in A New Hope, throughout the entire original trilogy, Han Solo is the guy that ends up being the one you depend on. He's the guy who comes through for you in the end, because he's the good guy.
Yeah.
So
he's the good guy.
I think that's a really solid way of characterizing his journey.
That is a completely fair assessment. Like the way you put it out, like you almost have me convinced.
Well, listen, and I know I
think I just prefer. No, seriously, I'm being completely sincere in that. I think I like the scoundrel though. Like you said, I'm like, man, I want more of the scoundrel. Well, does that make sense? I don't know.
Absolutely.
If I can even.
I think Han's most boring existence or performance, whatever, is in Return of the Jedi. He doesn't really have an edge. He's just kind of there, and it's kind of obvious that Harrison Ford at that point had kind of wanted to have him killed off, and there's a famous conversation that he apparently had with George Lucas. He said he has no mama, he has no papa.
Yeah.
Let's do this. And George famously looked at him and said, yeah, but dead Han Solo toys don't sell. But to go back to Chris's point about that conversation he had with Kira, where she says that, I'm the one who knows who you really are, hero. Think about this too for a second. All that was very intentional, because there is no doubt about it. When they dropped that cliffhanger in the commercials, every single person that knows anything about Han Solo said to themselves, she's going to call him a scoundrel right here. And in fact, she did not. And it makes more sense that she didn't and said what she said because of everything that Chris just so eloquently described. So anyway,
yeah, but it just felt like, because he's going to be a hero in 4, so I'm going to call him a hero now. To me, when she said that, it was...
Well, and that's part of going backwards with these characters that we love, and say that's the original sin of elements of the prequels that didn't work for them personally. But
I wish it would have been more like, when she's like, I know what you are, and then when he was like, oh yeah, what's that? Maybe she would have said, like, you need to figure that out yourself. I don't know, man. Like, just so it wasn't so like, seriously, just so it wasn't so spelt out for us. Cause that's the part that drives me nuts, is like, we already know. So stop being so blatantly obvious with these giant arrows. Like, see, like, that's the part that was like, I can watch a movie and make my own like connections, especially to something we know how it plays out. Stop being so obvious. That, I think that was also really hard for me.
It's interesting. It's interesting when we're such fans of it too. Like Justin, did you take your kids to see it?
Yeah.
I mean, do they have? I mean, they don't have the same context or reverence for the character that you do.
My 8-year-old, he loved it. He loved it. And they're not thinking. My 8-year-old son, he was just like, oh, this, it was really cool, and he was super into like why the Millennium Falcon looked different and all that stuff, and
right.
For him, this is he's gonna be upset with the prequel to this prequel in like 20 years.
Well, for me, speaking about your son, there's always these debates about Star Wars and not my Luke and some of the backlash from The Last Jedi and what have you, and what people have to understand. And I say people, I'm 43 years old, and I've been a fan of this franchise since I was in the 70s. And anyway, and my point is this, is that it's for us, but to go on this ride. But at the end of the day, these new films are for your son. They're for my daughters. They are for that generation to grow up, and these will be their movies. And
I disagree.
No,
they're for everybody.
I absolutely agree with that as well. At the end of the day, of course, they are for everybody. But my point is that this generation of kids are getting, how many millions of kids are into Star Wars, and the first thing they think of when they think of Star Wars is Rey. And that's awesome. That's how it should be. That's my point, is that it's, that's what I mean. And so, like, the fact that your 8-year-old son loves this movie so much, and he doesn't have some of this like toxic absolutism that we have sometimes with
that'd be awful if he did.
Right? That's what I'm saying. He's not cynical about anything, because this is just his Star Wars.
Well, he knows that he's grown up in my home, and so he knows the prequels are garbage.
Stop.
But his favorite character, his favorite Star Wars. No, I mean, it's the truth.
Well, the prequels aren't garbage.
His favorite character is Finn. So like he does have the characters he's connecting to. So
like your son when Luke died, or when he had his moment in The Last Jedi with his nephew, and he's not sitting there going, I grew up with Luke, and Luke wouldn't have done X, Y, and Z or whatever. He's just like, cool. This is just the story of Luke. But that's what's so exciting about this franchise, is that it just brings on, a new generation of fans constantly. And it's so cool.
Just as a quick aside, that's a show that we need to have. What we need to do is watch The Last Jedi, and then right after that, read The Dark Knight Returns and ask if The Last Jedi is Luke's Dark Knight Returns.
Hey, I'm all over it.
Oh, wow.
But I want to say this. My favorite thing about this movie, because I will agree with you, Justin, on this level. This movie is great fun, but it's not a great movie. I think The Last Jedi is a great movie. I think Revenge of the Sith. Come at me, Internet is a great movie. I think Empire Strikes Back is a great movie. Solo's not a great movie, but it's great fun. And so the story is a little bleak. It could have a little bit more meat on it, and there could be the stakes have been a little higher. I can get into some stuff like that, and I'm down with that, right? But at the end of the day, for me, what I wanted to get out of this film, first of all, I wanted to have a good time, which I did completely. And I saw it 2 weeks early, and I couldn't wait to see it again. And I have not ever seen a film that early in a press screening either, so to have to wait that much longer for. And it's not like I've been to a million press screenings, but I've been to a handful of them, and they're usually the week of. And so I had to sit around and wait for 2 weeks to see it again. It was almost worse than like I haven't seen it at that point, because it was just fun. And I really, really loved it when I saw it the second time. It just even came more to life for me. But all the stuff with Han and Chewie, that just makes the whole damn thing worth it. I adore. I don't even have a problem with him speaking Wookiee to him, because it's so brief.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I think it was. Look, if you ever see the deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith when Obi-Wan and Anakin are like talking like R2, they're going doo 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 doo, and that is atrocious. And I'm glad that was cut out. That's kind of how.
It's just like, okay, why does Han talk like Wookiee to him, but then it never ever?
Because he has limited. He just knows a couple of words, man. Just a couple of words. It was an elective. It was an elective. He got through. I also like how there was even one or two times in the film where he wasn't 100% sure exactly what he said. He said something. I don't know if it was family or tribe, but something like that. I thought that was kind of cool that they did that. That there was even a.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I like that he can understand him, but when he was speaking to him. It was kind of like, he's like, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. I mean, it's like me.
Because we haven't experienced that a whole heck of a lot. I mean, we see a lot of other characters know that. Like, just look at Rey in The Force Awakens. She can do an awful lot when we first meet her, and a lot of other characters communicate with her. You know, when she retrieves BB-8, she doesn't speak in the language, but she understands it, so we see that a lot, and it just seems like a common thing when you're in a universe with a lot of different races. You just you probably know a few.
And listen, they didn't push it too far, but listen, I want to get back to the heart of this thing, right? Is because that is the heart and soul of this film, is the two of them, and I think they just nailed it. And I have to give a lot of props to how do you properly pronounce his name? The actor that plays Junis,
I think it's
Sunimo, something like that. If you think about it, the first movie he was in was The Force Awakens, and Peter Mayhew was still on set, and all the close-up stuff and him sitting down as Peter, and then basically he was more or less kind of a glorified stunt double, really. And then in The Last Jedi he was in the film, and it's a fair criticism to say that I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more with Chewie in The Last Jedi. I didn't think Ryan really knew.
Yes,
I didn't think Ryan really knew what to do with him, unfortunately. There were some good moments. I like when he kicks Luke's door in and all that. But this was his first.
The story didn't really have a spotlight for him.
Exactly. Him and Finn both really. But in this film, this was his film. This was his Chewbacca movie, and he is so good, and he has the mannerisms down, and he just has it's everything, and it's also the physicality of things that we've never gotten to see with him before, because even in the 70s and early 80s, Peter Mayhew was tall, but he wasn't agile. He wasn't in good shape. He was always kind of awkward. This guy's like kind of an athlete, right? And it's a lot of fun to watch. And to me, guys, the shower moment was like worth the price of admission. It might be like one of the sweetest moments in a Star Wars movie. I just adore that moment. I think it's so cool.
I would, to latch onto that, I wish there was more of this brotherhood friendship explored in this movie.
Yeah.
I think that would have been the win there, is to, let's explore that relationship more, because I could care less about Kira. Like, she could have been blown away, and I'd been like, oh, okay. She just didn't have a whole lot of like I didn't feel the chemistry. I think she did fine, like, in her role, but I didn't care about her. I was like, dude, I'd rather watch Chewbacca and Han Solo go handle some business across the galaxy. That would have been a way better and more like I would have been way more invested and leaned in more on that movie.
Chris, what's your favorite thing about this film and your least favorite thing about
favorite
this film?
thing is probably the moment that actually made me go from enjoying it to really, really liking it. And that was the Kessel Run. I was so legitimately taken with the Kessel Run because, I mean, everybody has their own idea. When you first hear that line in A New Hope, the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. I mean, first of all, there's that whole, oft repeated correction about it's a measurement of distance, not time, which is true. Yeah. But I mean, we get it. You don't need to keep talking about it 40 years after the fact. We get it. But the really awesome thing that this did is that not only was it a really cool action scene, but it gives context to something that we all thought was a mistake, which very well could have been a mistake in the original screenplay. And it turned it into this threatening, really visually distinct, solid action scene that helps to further emphasize Han's skill as a pilot. It further emphasizes and really solidifies the connection that he feels to the Falcon. I mean, obviously they hint at it when he first lays his eyes on it, but you really get the sense that this is a bond that there's certainly a lot more to it than you might have thought as soon as he gets behind the wheel, so to speak. And so the Kessel Run was just awesome. I really liked that as a scene. And I mean, when I was a kid, I always thought that the Kessel Run was like a race of some kind. And the screenplay just took it in a different direction, but also in a direction that makes perfect sense in the context of everything that we know about it. So I was over the moon about the Kessel Run. As for what I enjoyed the least, I mean, it was probably kind of like Justin, the wink, wink, nudge, nudge in several different spots. The winking at the camera is something that I have a generally low tolerance for in anything. I think the best example of a quasi wink at the camera that was played totally straight and that actually worked really well for me was the Joker card at the end of Batman Begins. I think that's the sort of best example of how you could do that. But that even saying that, I didn't feel like those sort of hints at everything that we know about Han Solo and some of the other characters in the original trilogy, I didn't think that they were too egregious, but they were noticeable. And I wasn't crazy about Kira's character. And the reason that I say that is because obviously one of the cornerstones of the original trilogy was the relationship between Han and Leia. And after all of those movies are said and done, 4, 5, and 6, you get the sense that Han and Leia are worthy of each other. Not just because of the shared struggle, but just because their personalities really seem to complement each other really well. And I didn't get the sense that Kira was necessarily as worthy of Han. And that kind of bothered me that she was getting as much attention as she did in the story, because I'm not quite sure that the writing of the screenplay made a decent enough case for her in that role specifically. But that's a minor gripe, and it certainly doesn't drag the movie down a whole lot in the context of everything. So that's probably the best rundown I can give.
Cool, man. Ryan, what about you? What was your favorite thing? And by the way, no one's even talked about Glover's Lando yet.
No, not yet.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
we're getting there.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just freaking perfect. Perfect. Anyway, Ryan, what's your favorite thing and least favorite thing about this film?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Kessel Run too, because once Lando and the Millennium Falcon come into the movie, then it all starts to feel like it's got a lot of momentum to it, and all these characters are interacting together, and then I just love how Lando gets kind of taken out, and Han has to kind of take over the Falcon, and then you see the Kessel Run happen. You know, the Kessel Run is like, it's Han Solo's Clone Wars. It's that one line you get in A New Hope that you wonder, what's that? You know, because you have the Clone Wars line, and it's like one sentence, and now we've got like whole series made out of it, and we get to see the Han version of that in this with the Kessel Run. So I thought that was a lot of fun, and Lando in general I thought was just really great. He was pretty mysterious to me, you know, in the original films, and it was fun to get more context and to see how some of this played out and to see Han get the Millennium Falcon at the end. But my it's kind of a nitpicky gripe that this movie didn't have R2 or 3PO in this. Because it breaks the streak. It breaks the streak of them being in every film, so that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, that is a little bit of a bummer. I would much rather have had him in this and not being built by little boy Anakin in the Phantom Menace. Even though I like,
right? Well, yeah, exactly.
Even though I like the Phantom Menace, it's fine. But that's a flaw.
Yeah.
But
I would just say Darth Maul is awesome, but he's good enough to talk about separately.
He absolutely is, and so and yeah,
spoilers,
totally spoilers. And the whole thing with Darth Maul also. Well, let's get to that in a moment by itself. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, Justin, let it rip, man.
Yeah. I don't have I kind of explain. Most of mine are like the nuances of the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, oh, I hate this. If I had to, like, one of my favorite parts, the heist in the beginning was really cool. I thought that was fun. That was kind of edge of your seat. I thought it was really well done. The part that bugged me, I guess this kind of goes into the parts I didn't like when Val dies. I felt like Beckett would have been a way more angry with Han Solo. I mean, that's his wife just died, and it's kind of, I mean, it was her call, but you know, he didn't really know that. And I thought there'd be a lot more emotion there. And it would have been really good if they played that up at the end on the double cross, you know, like, you took something from me, even though it wasn't really Han's fault. I just feel like, oh, he got over his wife being blown up pretty easy. And so there's that. And I wish I would have saw more of Thandie Newton in this movie. Like, you know, like, oh, she just kind of had a real bit part. And then also, I think
Beckett didn't trust his wife either. He didn't trust her. He didn't trust anybody. You know?
Well, maybe, but it would have been it could have been a really, you know, it would have been good to explore that more, I thought. Because then Beckett's just a bad guy who turns on him. He kind of goes from, he's kind of a Liam Neeson, and then he's not. Then he goes back to being a Harrelson. The stuff with Enfy's Nest, which I really hate that name. Like, I think she looks so cool with that name. Why don't you just call her Empty Nest? Because that's all I keep saying is Enfy's Nest. I didn't like how she turned out. Like, she's this badass, like, pirate. And then, like, oh no, we're like the beginnings of this rebel alliance, and I don't like how that played out at the end. To me, it was disappointing. Like, oh man, this really awesome looking villain. Like, that was the one of the visuals I saw in these trailers that had me pumped. I'm like, this is one of the coolest looking, like, Star Wars characters that we've seen in a while. And then it just kind of did nothing for me at the end. It was like, oh, okay, they're just gonna help them. And because I'm a fan of having really strong bad guys, especially in Star Wars movies, and we really didn't get a great one. We got, you know, Dryden was great, but he wasn't like, oh man, I can't wait to go get that Dryden action figure. You know, like, I'm going to get this Enfy's Nest action figure, and like, what's going to happen? Like, oh, well, he's not really a bad guy or a bad lady. It's that may sound petty, but I was just like, man, he's no
Kylo Ren or Darth Vader.
Kylo Ren. Yeah, there's no Kylo Ren or Darth Vader in this movie, and you need those. I mean, you kind of get a guy later on in the film, but he's not even really. He's in the shadows of the Empire. Oh, we should have got Dash Rengar in this movie. That's who he should have ran into at some point. Anyways, yeah, I don't want to keep like raining down on it. I don't have a whole, like, one major part of the movie where I'm like, this bugged me. It just kind of the holes in it, the holes in the movie.
Well, there's holes in every Star Wars movie, right? The thing that bugged me, you're right, Empire's a perfect film. The only part that bugged me, and this is going to sound like a little bit of a contradiction of what I said earlier, because I was actually agreeing more with Chris and disagreeing with sort of your assessment. I think that this very much was Han and pertinent to his where we find him in A New Hope. With that said, there is one aspect of Han I wanted to see, and I did want to see. And again, this could be intended for a sequel that we probably won't get, unfortunately. But I wanted to see the Han that. Why does he not believe in the Force? Why is it just hokey religions to him and nonsense? And I wanted to see something that answered that question for me, or at least alluded to it, something. And I can't even put my finger on it, guys. I don't know specifically what what would have, made me be fulfilled on this. I don't know. I just wanted something with that. So that's a disappointment. And the things I love the most, I'll just say it again, is all the stuff with Han and Chewie. And like, man, the first time Chewie sits down and he's like his official co-pilot, and Han looks at him and kind of smirks. I'm like, I borderline tear up in the theater. I'm like, yes, there they are. This is it. This is them until the day he dies. And of course, also knowing that is poignant in a way as well. And then obviously, look, the Darth Maul reveal. Look, that to me is just so awesome. And the fact that it's also Ray Park is just even more awesome. Did anybody else think that was Emperor Palpatine for a moment?
You know what? Actually, not that. My friend Kelly, for some reason, he thought that Dryden was some type of version. I was like, he forgot about the prequels. He was like, oh, I haven't seen him in a bit. He was like, he kind of looked like he might be. I was like, no, but I did kind of, are they going for a Emperor thing? And so, and I think they intentionally tried to make you think that with like how he came at that angle.
With somebody sitting in that weird.
Yeah.
For me, I was just like, the voice instantly sounded different, so I knew they were going for something else that wasn't the Emperor, and it obviously wasn't Darth Vader, and so I knew it was like somebody important because they weren't revealing who it was, and there was a mysterious guy, and I was trying to figure it out, and as soon as I saw mechanical legs, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be Darth Maul, and then it was great to see that that's exactly what was going on with
what I liked.
It was a Red Skull moment for me, man. I was like, oh, like I didn't see it coming.
It's so great. Chris, what did you think? Did you like that addition?
Oh,
did
you
like that Darth Maul
thing
was in
that's
the
cool
film?
about it, as soon as I heard Sam Witwer's voice, I just went, no, really? Because the really awesome thing that this scene does, it portends some really great things for the cohesion of the Star Wars universe at large, because it's one thing to sit and watch episodes of Clone Wars or episodes of Rebels or, the Forces of Destiny shorts, and to know in the back of your mind that, this is in continuity with the movies. It's all connected. It's quite another thing to see something that, for all intents and purposes, originated in one of the animated shows. And, obviously Darth Maul showed up first in Phantom Menace, but the circumstances of his return are exclusively depicted in Clone Wars and then later on in Rebels. So seeing that conception of the character show up in a movie is really awesome, because this could mean maybe we'll see Ahsoka Tano in a movie at some point. Maybe we'll see Captain Rex in a movie at some point. All of that stuff in connecting the universe at large, because you're going to have a lot of people who come home from Solo who weren't spoiled on that ahead of time and going like, wait a second, but I saw Darth Maul get cut in half and thrown down a shaft in Naboo after the Duel of the Fates. What's the deal here? And then they're going to go online and they're going to do a Google search for Darth Maul and discover, holy crap, he came back a while ago. And they're going to find the circumstances that made his return possible. And then maybe they'll potentially seek those stories out and try and consume them themselves. And that's just really solid work as far as connecting everything in a far more visible and solid way. And it just makes me really excited about what the future could hold for these spin-off movies specifically, because there are so many great concepts that were introduced in those animated shows. Dave Filoni is a genius as far as I'm concerned.
Dave Filoni is a genius, and some would argue that maybe.
Well, hey, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be against that. I mean, I didn't think that I would enjoy Clone Wars nearly as much as I did, but I love that show. Rebels is very solid, and I'm going to love it forever just because of the fact that it brought back James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. That in and of itself is enough for me. But when taken as a whole story between Clone Wars and Rebels, I mean, those animated shows are spectacular. And if you haven't seen them, you really need to. So tying that stuff in a more solid way in the movies is really exciting for those of us that do pay attention to the other exploitations, whether it's in animation or even in novels and comics, because all of that stuff is tied together. And now there's significantly more potential for those more quote unquote ancillary things to show up in a movie. That's awesome. That is really cool.
I really 100% agree. I just hope that, and I don't want to turn this into a topic, but again, it's pertinent to the conversation. I just hope there's not a knee-jerk reaction from the studio, because unfortunately Solo is way underperforming, and we could get into a million reasons why and speculate. I don't even care to do that. But at the end of the day, it just is. And they're certainly going to course correct something. What I hope they don't do, I mean, unfortunately, I don't think we'll get a Solo sequel out of this. I doubt it.
But I think he's going to show up, because they talked about
that's
Boba
exactly
Fett movie,
the thing,
and
though.
who
The
knows?
Boba
It may
Fett
not even
movie
be
could
a
end
Boba
up
Fett movie.
being
It
the
could be
sequel to this if they really wanted it to.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, give me the Civil War of the Star Wars movies where stuff just happens.
I don't think we're getting the Boba Fett movie, especially now. Now, here's what I will say. What we really should get, and I want it as much as I want like anything else in the world. I really want my Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan film, man. I gotta have it. I want it. And in Rebels, they obviously explore that relationship between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, and there's a powerful episode when those two confront one another for the last time. And, you obviously could play off that, but, and maybe Alden's Han is maybe even in that film. So who knows? I hope we see him again. I just don't know what's going to happen. We'll see what the final box office numbers are going to be. But if this thing doesn't hit 600, forget about it.
This is the only thing that I want to say when it comes to the performance of the movie. The only real service that I want to give to that idea, I don't think that it's anything more complicated than the movie's marketing campaign just didn't do a good enough job in selling it to people about why they needed to see it. It's not fatigue. If it was fatigue, I mean, fatigue
in the theater
would seem to indicate then, okay, you release two big high profile entries in the same series within 5 months of each other. People are going to get tired of it. If that were true, then you would have to pretty much completely discount the fact that we've gotten Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, and Avengers Infinity War since November.
Black Panther.
That's 3 major high-profile Marvel Studios movies, especially the latter 2, that broke records to hell and back. Because those movies did the job on the marketing campaigns of telling people why they needed to see it. And if Solo did the same thing, people would be turning out to see it. I don't think that that's a problem you're going to run into at all with an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And people are already invested in Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. There is a friend of Batman on Film, and everybody knows Zaki Hassan. He actually had a great interview with Ewan McGregor a year or two ago. And one of the questions he asked him is just about, his time with Star Wars and et cetera. He gets asked that all the time. But a cool thing that Zaki did is he set it up. He said, what's funny is that my young boys, like to me, and this is Zaki, he's like, to me, Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan. And then you're the guy that came in and just played the younger version so perfectly. And I accept both realities. But when I think Obi-Wan, my head still naturally goes to Alec Guinness. He goes, my sons, I'm paraphrasing this, so pardon me for butchering it, but it's the gist is all here. He says, but my sons, you are Obi-Wan. You. Not Alec Guinness is the weird old dude that played him in one of the older movies, and okay, whatever, but Ewan McGregor is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and there's a generation of fans
He's my Obi-Wan too, man. I'll jump on that Obi-Wan
he's
boat.
mine. They both are. But my point to all that is I'm walking around the block across the street here as I typically do, to try to make a basic point here. I don't know how
that's your birthday.
I don't know how my wife handles me, but it's the fact that we love Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. Even people that don't like the prequels love him as Obi-Wan.
Right, he's one of the strengths for sure.
Sure, yeah, for real. And so I think that there's obviously a lot to be said for that as well. He's already an established actor, and this was an unknown actor playing. And look, I'm trying not to get into this habit of like, and I catch myself saying it sometimes where it's the film that no one asked for. But you know what? I didn't freaking ask for Rogue One either. I didn't ask. I didn't.
No one really asks for a lot of movies. And so, I mean, there's very few that you ask for. You're like, oh, I want to see another of those. So I think when you say, like Chris, you were talking about people saying like, oh, there's, people are, they're having fatigue. Like that's just a hot button people say. I never buy fatigue of anything. Like, are we fatigued on comedies and animated movies? No, it's just make good ones. Or sometimes you just can't put your finger on why didn't that connect? I don't know. You don't know. Like, so again, Solo is not it's not a bad movie. And there's just, coming from my angle, there's just some things that I didn't love about it. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to watch it again. I've bought my kids some action figures, so I'm supporting it as much as I can. Like,
I can't wait to see it again. But hey,
I don't know. I feel can I just say, can we just? I just don't want to talk about box office and stuff.
No. I agree, and we talked about this off. Like, I didn't want to have a topic about the box office. It's just, here's the deal, Justin. It's unavoidable in this regard when we're talking about, well, where does the future hold for Darth Maul in the cinema? Well, we can't. We have to kind of to set that up, because I think things are definitely that were probably going to happen may not happen now because of the box office, and that just is that's a sad reality. But at the end of the day, I think we all think that we still hope that we'll get the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan film. If we do, I guess here's one thing I will say: I think that we probably won't get another May Star Wars film for a long time. I think they're going to stick with December. So what would that be? That would be 2020, right? Because there's nothing slated for that, right? So episode 9 comes out next year, December 2019. Right. That's correct. Yes.
Right.
And so that would be 2020 December. If Kenobi is not slated for that, it may be something we just never get, and that would be a damn shame. I would hate to, but since this is a Batman,
unless they take more of a break between, numbered saga films.
Well,
we'll see.
Before another trilogy.
That's a conversation.
Right. Let's go back to good stuff. Let's get into some Donald Glover as Londo.
Because it's
what
you guys' favorite thing that he does?
He would when you first.
My favorite thing is how it addresses the way he pronounces Han. I love that. That's a running joke. That is so perfect, and he just ignores it, and he just keeps calling him the way he calls him, and it makes sense when you watch Empire. It's just so great. I love
so
that.
great. And listen, two of my favorite scenes in that film, or two, I would say in my top. I don't know. I just love Star Wars so much. It's hard for me to do this, but I just love the card scenes, and both card scenes, both of them. They're just so fun, both of them. And he is just, that guy is like almost too cool for his own good, man. Like, he's a really talented dude.
Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite things, there was a great Twitter thing going on, like people not knowing he's Childish Gambino, and like, wait, what? Like having this big revelation of like, wait a second, like having this like mind explosion. And so that was probably one of my favorite parts of the weekend, is just people finally getting that, like, come on.
Hey, it's a real treat for me, guys, is that I am a Cheers fanatic and a borderline Frasier fanatic. Best spinoff from the best sitcom of all time. You come at me with Seinfeld, I say, no, sir, sit your butt down. It's Cheers. But to have a Cheers character and a prominent actor from that to be in a Star Wars movie, that was a treat. I liked Woody Harrelson. I like having Woody in a Star Wars movie. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I liked having John Favreau in there
Yes.
as Rio.
Way cool.
That was fun.
That was cool. I was wondering why he was on the red carpet. I go, is this because he's doing the TV show?
Yeah, I
Like,
knew
why
he
is
was. It was a pretty late addition for him to doing that voice, but yeah, he did good.
All right, guys, we are a little past an hour now, so I'm gonna ask this last question. It's kind of the nauseating Rick question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. I'm gonna start with Chris.
Oh.
All right, Chris, where do you rank Solo
Oh
in
my
your Star
God.
Wars rankings, sir?
Oh man.
And you can give me a specific answer or just a generalization. I don't care. I'm just kind of curious.
Probably
Where's
by
this,
default,
where does this film rank for you?
It's the lowest of the current Star Wars movies, but that's certainly not bad company to be in. It's just, I like the other ones a little bit more. I mean, depending on the day, I don't know. I could see myself liking this movie more than The Force Awakens, just because I'm still a little bit bitter about the fact that Han died in the first place. And I'm also...
Yeah, but are you bitter? Did you when it was announced that Harrison Ford was coming back? I said this out loud to whoever was in the room with me. I think it was my wife. I said, this is awesome.
I mean,
news, but
I
he's gonna
probably
die.
should have seen it coming like that, but I have some basic structural issues with the sequel trilogy in general. I mean, I don't really like the fact that there's basically been no progression whatsoever on a lot of the fronts, particularly with the Jedi, and the fact that there's a resistance, but the resistance is actually an extension of the only legitimate government. So I think the resistance is kind of a misnomer. The Last Jedi kind of fixed that a little bit, but I mean,
Yeah.
people's problems with The Last Jedi, I think, are pretty much
Come on, Chris,
solely
bring it.
the fault of The Force Awakens. It's all like structural stuff. That being said, though, I mean, I love Kylo Ren.
Right.
I think Rey is a great character, and it's got some great moments. But beyond that, with Solo, it's probably just kind of on the lower end of the spectrum with the Disney movies, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm also a guy, I mean, I was in 6th grade when episode 1 came out. I don't hate the prequels, not by any stretch of the imagination. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's our Star Wars, Chris. I mean, that's our childhood right there. It's sacrilege for some people to hear that, but it's true. There's a generation that is now
and
adults where the prequels
and
were.
if I'm trying to look at it
Star Wars of their
objectively, I mean,
childhood,
Clone
so.
Wars did a really good job. You wouldn't have the greatness of the show that is the Clone Wars without the world building of the prequel trilogy. Not at all. So I see a significant amount of value
exactly
in what the prequel trilogy brought to the table, just when it comes to the world building, in addition to the fact that I enjoy the movies. I legitimately really like episode 3. I'm not as crazy about 1 and 2, but I still recognize the contributions that they made in building out a world that I really enjoy. But with Solo, yeah, I mean, one of the things, and this is the last like continuity thing that I want to bring up, but something that I thought was actually kind of brilliant on this movie's part. As soon as they mentioned with L3 that she had the best navigational database in the galaxy, I was like, really? Are they going in that direction? And they totally did. They totally explained in The Empire Strikes Back
That was
why
so brilliant.
C-3PO mentions the nav computer of the Millennium Falcon has a really peculiar dialect. It's like, holy crap, L3 is the nav computer of the Falcon. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, stuff like that, they throw those kinds of bones. It's hard for me not to say that I didn't have a blast watching this movie. But yeah, I mean, taken as a whole, it's not quite as far up as it could be, but it's still a good Star Wars movie that I'm happy to have seen. And I do want to see it again.
Did anybody else, and those are all really good points, by the way. Did anybody else, when Chewbacca was pushing Han down in the mud and the mud was coming over his face, did anyone else see him
I didn't
in
notice it until after the fact. Yeah, Justin Bolter.
Not until I
set
saw
that
it on
tweet out.
Twitter.
Yeah, I had not, when I saw it twice and just went over my head. Quite frankly, I didn't even, you picked up on the L3 thing in real time. I did. That flew over my head too. I think that was on Twitter today. My point is this: you discover all these things as you're watching it, and you obviously follow people on social media that will reveal other things to you. There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so many little great
especially
Easter
coming
eggs.
off of like 6 episodes of season 2 of Westworld, I was happy to see the lighter side of a robot rebellion. So yeah, that was fun.
All right, Justin, where does Solo rank for you, buddy? Like, just generally speaking.
Oh man, I don't have my.
Do you like
my
it? Do you like
list
it better than The
handy,
Last
but,
Jedi?
I think I do. Did we have we done a ranking after the Last Jedi? I would say that I was looking forward to it more than the Last Jedi. It's above the prequels. It's yeah. Let me see. The top of my list is Jedi, and then Empire.
You and I have the same favorite Star Wars
Force
movie.
Awakens, and then we go into.
Yeah,
I love Jedi, dude.
Return of the Jedi.
I love it. Yeah, yeah. Just
You have to clarify that these days.
I know Empire. Empire is the best. Empire is the best, but Jedi that has my
the
heart.
last, you know,
and I like Ewoks.
I rewatched
bring it.
Jedi after you revealed that, you know, shortly after that, and I was like, you know what, he's got a point. Ewoks and stuff aside, this
I'm a
got some
sucker for
good
the
stuff in it.
redemptions.
Yeah,
I love the
I
Ewoks
love
anyway.
it. And that was a thing. I freaking loved seeing.
Yeah, good call.
Beckett wearing Londo's bounty hunter suit. Oh man, that was so cool. That was freaking cool, man. And I was like, you know why? Because Jedi. Anyways, yeah, I don't know, Rick. I don't want to like keep figuring out my list, but it's above the prequels, and it's probably above Last Jedi for me, to be honest. Like, I'm not wanting to watch Last Jedi over anytime soon, and I'm excited to watch Solo again, because maybe I'll enjoy it a little bit more. You know, it's one of those deals, like watching it with my kids may make me see past my own.
You've seen it
my own
once.
issues.
You've seen it once, right?
Kind of like seen it once. I was gonna try to watch it again, but
How many times have you seen The Last Jedi?
Anytime soon, so. I've seen it 3 times. I just watched it maybe
Chris, how many times have you seen it?
2 weeks ago?
6 or 6. I saw it 4 times in theaters, I think. Well, I mean, because I went home for the holidays, and of course had to see it with my family, but I also had to see it with Paul Herman. Well, but I had to see it with Paul.
That's what makes it easy.
His neck of the woods, and that was one of the most fun times that I had seeing it again. So, and then getting a 4K Blu-ray, it's hard not to admire just how pretty it looks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love The Last Jedi. So Ryan, where does Solo rank for you, buddy?
For me, it's hard for me to rank these non-saga films because I'm just getting used to having non-saga films. You know what I mean? But for me, it's probably in the middle somewhere. I would watch it above episodes 1 or 2, probably. But I would watch any of the other ones above it, probably. But that is obviously not to say that I don't like the movie. I think it's really fun, and I can't wait to see it again. I've only seen it once. It's obviously hard to see movies in the theater more than once for me right now. Having a little baby, I actually had to. I watched the baby last week and let Sarah go see it by herself too, and she enjoyed it quite a bit too. So I can't wait to see it again. I think it's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. You know, for me, it's, you know, episodes 1 and 2 are probably always going to be on the bottom list of Star Wars. And I hope that's true, because I still like those films, and I really like Attack of the Clones. I know that one's kind of hated by a lot of people the most, and I don't know what it is. I think it's a very stylized film, and I think it's just, I don't know what it is about the Attack of the Clones. I just kind of get it, and I get into it, and I like it. I like the mystery of it. I like all the stuff with Detective Obi-Wan. I dig it. But I understand the flaws of it, and every Star Wars film other than The Phantom Menace is superior. Solo's kind of down there with those films. It's better than those 2 films. But here's the thing about it that's funny, not because it's just interesting how we judge movies, right? Like, how do you say something's better than something else? It's art. And sometimes it's just sort of like how you feel about something. And even though I can look at it and break it down, and like the film student in me, theater major guy, whatever, can talk about purely the execution, the writing, the editing, everything, and how you should judge a film. And, you know, I think, for instance, The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens are better movies than Solo. I think they're tighter. I think they're better pacing, better character development, etc. all that being said, I don't know if there's a Star Wars film that I can watch that is as fun to watch as Solo, just purely fun. And I don't know if there's an answer to that, because as it stands right now, I feel like it's the most fun out of all of them. And if it's just based on that, it's my favorite. But obviously, it's not quite that simple, because it doesn't challenge me. It doesn't, there's things that Rian Johnson did in The Last Jedi that just they really made me sit there and just kind of stare at the screen and think. This film doesn't do that. It's not meant to do that. It's not designed to do that. So it just sort of depends on my mood. So I don't really know where I'd rank it. I probably would have it down there above 1 and 2, maybe another one or so. But it is definitely, it makes me smile. I mean, I smile through 90% of that movie, and that's important. That's real escapism, and it's cathartic when when you're when you can do that, when you can kind of get out of the the kind of day-to-day grind of life sometimes and just get lost in a fun adventure. And that's what the film did for me. And so it is interesting to kind of play in my head going, man, I wonder what kind of movie this would have been if Lord Miller had finished the film. Like what were they doing with this?
Right.
It's kind of,
and that's the thing to me. I mean,
I don't know.
You can see the seams if you're looking for them, but to me, I just kind of forgot all about that and just went in and watched the movie and had a good time. Like,
release it now.
I thought,
so we can see it. It'd be a better.
hashtag
it's coming.
Yes, someone had. I sent that to Rick. Someone put it out there.
Isn't the internet such a trip? Like sometimes I get so lost on like, was that something that we talked about, or was that a meme? Is that something somebody tweeted? I can't even keep it anymore. But look, guys, this was a great discussion. This was a fun show. I'm looking forward to seeing. I want to go see Solo at least one more time in the theater. I've seen it twice, and so I'm going to go see it the week after next when I get back from Mexico, and went to Mexico with the family. Chris taking the girls and the wife,
Sounds
and
awesome.
we're all going to Mexico for 8 days. So should be fun with a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. Good times. But anyway, when I get back, I want to go see it again. And I haven't yet to see it in IMAX because the press screening, we were just at a Angelica kind of, yeah, right. And then
I saw it in IMAX 2D. It was great. It was good.
Well, I saw it at a Cinemark, and it's the XD, their kind of version of IMAX. But I want to see it in pure IMAX. And so when I get back, all right. So let's wrap this thing up, man. Let's do some plugs and go to bed. It's almost midnight. Well, it is for me and Ryan, right? We're the same time zone.
Yeah, it's 12:30 for me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 12:30 now for you. See, it's 11. Well, yeah, I've got 11:38 on my clock right now, and Justin, it's like noon for you, right?
Yeah, I'm going out, man. After this,
Dude, I'm so super stoked to see you here in just like 3 or 4 weeks, man. It's gonna be great.
Yeah,
is it
5
okay,
weeks?
whatever.
Right? Something like that.
It's about
at
5.
the end of June. Whatever. It's gonna be good.
Whatever. All right, so let's get out of here. Chris, let's
feel
do a
free
plug.
to find me on
What you
Twitter
got?
at Chris Clow, ChrisClow, and I just released the latest episode of Discovery Debrief, a Star Trek podcast, where we interview Dayton Ward, who's the author of the latest Star Trek Discovery tie-in novel, Drastic Measures, which is a really great book, and Dayton's a really great guy, so we had a lot of fun. Zaki's also normally a co-host on Discovery Debrief, and it's really great to have him as part of the crew. Beyond that, on the Batman Podcast Network, you could find the latest episode of Comics on Consoles, which deals with the 2008 Iron Man game, that also kind of delves into the whole climate that led to the creation of the MCU, as well as a review of a game that's not great. And I'm working.
You do such a good job of doing that, though. I mean, so much context. It's not just like this game sucked. I mean, you have all the context and the history and what happens next and stuff, and that's why it makes it so intriguing. Yeah,
on that show is that yes, there are games that are bad and they should not be inoculated from being called bad, but there are people who work on those things, and you need to keep that in mind. before you say or do something that might affect people you might not knowingly see. But I'm exactly.
Yeah. I'm one of them.
Totally.
I
of course,
get
man.
that.
And I'm actually working on issue number 11 right now, which is going to deal with the 2000 Spider-Man game that was released on the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Dreamcast and the Nintendo 64. So, oh yeah, man. I mean, to me, that game is just as important to superhero
game was
video
so
games.
good.
It was, yeah.
Wasn't it on the 64?
But that game is just as important
that's
to
the
me to
version I played as
superhero
a kid.
games as Superman the movie is to superhero movies.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to diving into that. And just follow me on Twitter, see what other crazy, weird crap I've got going on. Yeah, actually,
Did you give your Twitter handle? Did
I was
miss
able
that?
to get in on the ground floor of that. I couldn't
At
get
Chris Clow. Okay,
chriscloud.com, but I did manage to get my name on Twitter. So at least there's that.
Awesome. Okay, Justin, what you got, buddy?
Yeah, you can go to letsgocast.com and check out some shows. We just put out, finally did a new Let's Go proper show. We talked about Cobra Kai and just kind of caught up on some movies that have been out. And so go watch Cobra Kai. That show is freaking fun.
I need
as
to watch
heck,
the
dude.
prequels.
So if you love, oh man, what? No,
What?
Oh,
I
Brian,
really haven't seen those.
Go watch The Karate Kid, please. Goodness, oh man. Take care of yourself. And then, every weekend there's a new episode of the Let's Go comic show. And so we'll be talking about some comics. That episode may be coming out tonight or tomorrow. So, but by the time the show comes out, it'll be out. So that'll be episode 59 of the Let's Go comic show. So
cool.
Yeah.
Ryan Haas.
Yes. Follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. Follow the Robin Everyone Loves the Drake podcast at ELTD Podcast. We just wrapped up our gigantic audio drama for A Lonely Place of Living. And it was super good and super fun. And I can't wait to just listen to all that in one episode. But all 4 episodes and discussion of that are up. So check that out.
Is he going to do one?
We are going to do a long cut. We're not sure when or how it's going to come, but yeah, we're totally going to do that. Yeah,
Do a Patreon.
And also, this past Memorial Day was the 25th anniversary of my very dear and beloved Super Mario Brothers movie. So, as everybody knows, I run the Super Mario Brothers movie archive website, which is at smbmovie.com, and we celebrated it by I did like a live tweet of the movie on the SMB movie account, and had all kinds of screenshots and stuff, and there's a whole bunch of articles and remembrances and videos and things. So if you just go to the smbmovie.com on that webpage, on that homepage, there's going to be there's already a whole bunch of anniversary related content up there. So give that a check. Give that a shot too.
Awesome. I'll just say follow me on Twitter at Shew Rick. And like we talked about at the top of the show, just be looking for Batman on Film 20th Anniversary Shenanigans. And the official day is Saturday, June 2nd, which is probably when this show will go live. So you'll be listening to this show on our 20th anniversary. I do have some exciting things coming up myself. I've got an op-ed that I'm working on about how I would love to see Robin handled in cinematic live action film. So I'll be hopefully getting that out pretty soon. Anyway, Shewrick, SHEWRICK. And as always, we appreciate your support. Thank you guys so much for supporting the Satellite Star Wars show. We want to keep doing stuff like this. We can't do it without your support, okay? So we appreciate it very much. And this is a great time for announcer Rachel to take us out.
Hey now, you've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, batmanpodcastnetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. For Jet, Rick, Justin, and Ryan, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.